All right, Marfoogle TV is starting right now. We're going to talk about current events and the scariest things that are happening right outside your window. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam McKay Marf, and this is Marfoogle TV. We've got one of the craziest sets of stories tonight, so stick around. This is going to be very, very interesting. First of all, I cannot believe the system that they just put into place in China, and I more so can't believe that we actually had one of our politicians, somebody who just ran for president, suggest almost exactly the same thing. And, we suggested back then that it was probably, it sounds like she had funders or people behind her that were almost Chinese in nature as far as the big brother aspect of this. Now, China has long mastered what was once considered impossible, completely controlling the internet within its borders. On Tuesday, Beijing will take another step towards centralizing its power over the web, introducing a government-run digital ID system that will enable it to more closely censor and surveil the country's 1 billion internet users. China has enforced a real name registration system for over a decade, meaning that the Chinese internet companies always know the true identity of the users of who they say ordering a dress online, leaving a social media comment, or playing a video game. With the new centralized ID system, the Chinese government will take over the process. Users who submit a trove of personal information, including scans of their faces, will receive a unique code to access online accounts. This is exactly what we had our candidates saying that we should do because we have to have responsibility of everything we say online. Totally throwing away any kind of, whistleblower protection or really a lot of freedoms if you really think about where this could go. This means that companies like social media, Weibo, or online shopping behemoth Alibaba will no longer be able to see personal information about their users with digital IDs. But Chinese authorities will be able to see the real identity behind the online accounts across a range of sites. Although voluntary, experts fear it may not remain so, or it will become so widely required as to make it effectively compulsory. It's hard to look at steps like these and not see an intention to make people not feel anonymous. Again, they want policemen to be in your head, and really important way of making people feel that the policeman is in their head is removing any illusion that someone might have that they are anonymous. Really think about that. The police are in your head. Well, if I write this, somebody, they know it's me. They're going to know I did it. This is a scary thing, and again, we have politicians that will not stop suggesting this for us. I think it's disgusting. We'll talk about this and much, much more on tonight's show. We'll be right back. Nothing in the show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. All right, before we go any further, let's first go over that you can find every single article, tweet, video, picture, document over on our website, marfooglenews.com. You have a full bibliography. Everything that we have here is also over there, so that way you know exactly where we got it from. Let's bring in my co-host/internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I'm doing just fine.
All right, so let's talk about the two sworn enemies against Putin.
Well, yeah, we're seeing more and more alliances, I guess, created against, as well as sometimes for, but in this case, pretty much against. But the collapse of the relationship between Russia and Azerbaijan came in a series of quick-fire blows. It began with the arrest of 7 nationals from the former Soviet Republic last month in the Russian city of Yekaterinburg. They were held as part of an investigation by Moscow into a mafia-style offings that were going back over 25 years. But within 2 days, two suspects, both Azerbaijanis, had perished in custody. So you can obviously see how this is just escalating with Azerbaijan. Well, now we are starting to see, I guess, this ongoing rift that had been between Azerbaijan and Armenia get sort of lifted as they are now coming together and aligning themselves against Russia. So that doesn't bode well for the relationship that Russia's tried to build and control in the Baltic area, from Georgia to Armenia to Azerbaijan, over there to the east of Turkey. But yes, this is an important area, and we've often talked about how these countries have been courted by NATO, been courted by the West. They've gone back and forth as to where their alliances were going to be. And now seeing that these two are sort of picking up and collectively working together, at least as it relates to the relationship that they have, or animosity that they now have towards Russia. And obviously, Azerbaijan being the latest in some of the negativity from Russia.
Well, there's also the Black Sea strategy, right? We talked about that. Dex, the Black Sea strategy, they said that Turkey is the biggest part, but Romania and not Bulgaria. I'm right here. Oh, Romania and Greece both talked about the Black Sea strategy and how these entire area, all behind Ukraine. Again, everybody keep that in mind. These are the people and the countries that are behind Ukraine, as if Russia is going to continue going. Now Armenia has joined that. So if you look at the location of all of these, it's like something just happened on the back end where all of these folks just either signed deals, put in defense systems. All of these things are happening at the same time. And it's under a plan that isn't even announced yet, which is the Black Sea strategy. And I believe Turkey is the one that's putting that together. Dex, do you remember? That's Turkey, right? I think Turkey is the one that's doing the Black Sea strategy, and it has everything to do with all of their neighbors. And they're right behind Ukraine. So it's as if, they know something is on the horizon. I mean, pretty much everybody thinks there might be a war, but it seems like they know there will be a war. Do you remember if that was Turkey that did the Black Sea?
Yeah, Turkey. We talked about it last night with Romania, and yeah, I believe Turkey's one of the ones leading it, spending the bigger effort towards it. But Romania being bordered there against the Black Sea as well. But if we see a greater alliance between Azerbaijan and, say, the West, then you're also going to get into the Caspian Sea, which is a closed sea. It's not necessarily directly, open water connected anywhere, but it is one of the pipelines between Russia and, say, Iran.
Yeah, they ship a lot of stuff across instead of going around. That we just covered another thing about how they were implementing some sort of technology in the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea to track different things going through it. And it was not of the native countries there. Like somebody else implanted in there and they didn't know where the hell it came from. It sounded a lot like what China is accusing the U.S. of doing. Anyways, and then we have Russia's chemical warfare in Ukraine escalates. The EU's Kaja Kallas confirms. They say confirms, but again, what they're saying, these are all huge claims. It says Russia is ramping up its use of chemical weapons in Ukraine. This is confirmed by intelligence of several countries. Now, what I think is really interesting is intelligence in itself is not always something that they absolutely know. Sometimes it's an educated guess, right? If it's not a fact, it's intelligence. And in fact, I think it was on Andrew Bustamante on that Diary of a CEO video that essentially talked about that. And I think it's funny because they are saying this is confirmed by intelligence from several countries. But that's just claims from several countries. They can't say that that is a fact. And the only reason I say this is because the wording matters. When you are putting this out to the world and to the country, the U.S., to any other country, it's like you are giving them a reason to believe in something, or to say, hey, they're doing this, so we need to do this. They can manipulate how people think, or whether people want to have a war or not, based on, actions or reactions that they're essentially telling you are happening. But what they do is they just say, this is confirmed by intelligence. We're not talking about AI. We're talking about intelligence. This is basically rumors and knowledge and things that they try to grab from here and there, but it's not fact. If it was a fact, they could just call it a fact, but it's not. It's an intelligence. It says information about Russia's use of chemical weapons in Ukraine comes from Dutch and German intelligence. And this is increasing, and the use is increasing. There are actually open sources since the Dutch Ministry of Defense has published this information. So understand, this is also something they just put right out. This isn't top secret. This is something that they have made open source. You have to wonder why. Dex, do you get what I'm saying? Like when they do something like this and make it open source, it's on purpose. They're not holding this close to their heart. They're supposedly showing their hand like, hey, we know you're doing this. Are they doing that to say, hey, we know? Or are they doing it to tell us that this is happening? And in reality, I bet you, Russia's going to come back within 24 hours and deny that they're doing it, obviously. But what do you think about that? Like, they're putting it out and they're clearly saying this is open source. They're putting it out to everybody.
Well, the big question is it true or not? And I don't know how we'll ever really know, because it's coming from intelligence and none of us are sitting in Ukraine ourselves. I'm sure others may report on it and may try to do independent reporting on it, and we may or may not learn of that. But look, it's one of those things that can easily be used to manipulate the public and the consideration of Russia as it relates to escalation. And if this is another, sort of smoking gun, so to speak, of like, look at what the bad things they're doing, we've got to do something about it, then that gets everybody, upset and up in arms if Russia's using chemical weapons, or even potentially breaking Geneva Conventions and laws that they can be tried against. So yeah, it is a spin. For sure.
And the same exact time, so Dutch ministry, German intelligence, they are putting out, hey, they're increasing their use of chemical weapons. You see the exact same day. So you have to understand, civilians, everybody that's following this is going to see, oh, they're increasing their use of chemical weapons. You also see the UK will provide Ukraine with new batch of military-grade gas masks to enhance protection against chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear threats. Now, one thing about this is how you can really quickly get a war started if some horrendous event happens, if a bio attack happens, if something happens where they have now put the seeds in your head. They could keep doing this for the next 2 months. They could keep dropping that they think, that there's a chemical threat, that this is going to get worse, that, the gas masks are, definitely needed right there now for more of the soldiers. And then something big happens, and then everybody sees it across the planet, and then they upscale a war. They kick it up a notch. I just think you got to look at the timing of when everything comes out. They make instant decisions based on intelligence that is open sourced. Usually they knew beforehand, and this is something they're purposely putting out to the media at a time, so it's for a purpose, right? But again, chemical weapons are nasty, and hopefully that is not the case, especially for all the men and women that are fighting in all of the different conflicts there. All right, and then before we move on, make sure to go check out EMP Shield. Again, I hope that you all already have one, but if you don't, this is a device that can protect your car and get you home. It can protect your generators. It can protect your cars, trucks, motorcycles, boats, pretty much anything that runs, including your solar generators. Again, they make one that is, in fact, already included with the all sorts of the different generators on our website, so go check that out. But as far as if you want one of these on your car, that means you're not going to walk 30 miles home. You're going to be able to get home. It's going to ground the signal of an EMP in less than 500 trillionths of a second before it's able to fry your car. Go to marfooglenews.com/EMP. It takes less than 10 minutes to put on your car, and then you are protected. Again, use code MARF for $50 off per device and to help our channel. We are independent and on our own, and this helps us. All of the affiliates we pick. Nobody picks it for us. We get to pick our own content. We don't. Nobody's breathing down our neck and telling us what we can and can't talk about. So again, that's what independent means to me, and I hope that you guys understand. We appreciate all of your support and sharing us out. All right. And then Russia warns of nuclear Armageddon after the latest Ukraine move. Dex, do you want to go over what this warning entails?
Certainly. So, with the president, warning Moscow and giving them so many days to comply, and obviously Russia sort of just blew that off. But they're saying that he's pushing Russia towards nuclear war with his new go head forward with arms to Ukraine, including the long range weapons that they've suggested could actually hit Moscow and other places. So, state TV propagandist and war pundit Alex Slotov said Trump is trying to scare us with missiles, but this is difficult to do. Trump should be scared. Everyone is trying to push to turn Kiev and Lviv into Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The Ukrainian leadership is calling for new missiles to strike Russian territory. It's taking the most active part in this. So the new deal does greenlight a supply of a possible $10 billion worth of defensive and offensive missiles, specifically offensive missiles, the ones they're concerned about, and other arms to be paid for by U.S. allies in Europe, along with Canada, as well as the threat of the sledgehammer sanctions if Putin refuses to negotiate in 50 days. So, but the idea of them using a nuke, and this goes back to what I've been saying the last few days, there's no tactical advantage of using one, but the only advantage would be is if they turn it into a similar style like they did in World War II to stop Japan. And if that's what happens, then that's like the only practical case to use one in Ukraine right now. It's not to take land. It's not to take out troops. It would be to, just sort of shock and awe the world and hopefully shock and awe Ukraine into saying, okay, we surrender. Let's end.
And each has a yield estimated between 100 and 300 kilotons, making each warhead about 7 to 20 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. So if you're talking bigger than that, I mean, you could take out Kiev. You could take out a whole big area, and then they say, okay, well, we give up. Is that what we're going to see in history? I highly doubt it, because that would start off a whole chain of reaction, events that would end up, putting us into a far greater war. But I mean, where are we headed? This is something where they've built up all of their tech. They've built up all of their robots and different ways of fighting right now. Some of the craziest, scariest weapons you've ever heard of, and some that you haven't heard of, are all being built right now. And people think that they're never going to use these. Yeah. I'm more scared that AI is getting implemented into all of these systems that are adjacent to the actual control systems that launch these damn things. Like, that to me is crazy, especially when you have AI that is literally hacking itself to try to basically not shut down and blackmailing its its owners to not shut it off. I mean, like, yeah, that's incredible. And then Russian aggression right now, they say, they always use Russian aggression. Well, this is a conflict right now. We're watching as they kind of push in. What are they going to do to get faster, ground coverage? Are they going to start using tacticals? That's a big question that everybody keeps asking. We have to sit and wait. And then China's World War II warning to Tokyo. Beijing fumes over the transfer of Japanese destroyers to the Philippines. Now, Japan essentially is giving them a certain type, and I'm forgetting which one it is. Oh, the Abukuma class destroyers to the Philippines. Now, I don't think the Philippines had any destroyers before that. But these are actually incredible ships. And the fact that they are giving these to the Philippines is not something that China is happy about. And it says Japan has been considering the transfer of secondhand maritime self-defense force Abukuma class destroyer escorts to the Philippines, marking its first such transfer of naval vessels in decades. The potential export was confirmed by the Philippines Navy, which stated that the Navy personnel are preparing to perform a joint visual inspection of the 109-meter long, or about 330-foot long, destroyer after receiving an invitation from Japan's defense ministry. Again, the Philippine Navy spokesman said that this would be part of exploratory discussions over the potential transfer of these ships, indicating that the discussions are currently in a preliminary stage. Now, if you are not familiar with the location of the Philippines compared to this, so Japan is over here, you've got the Philippines over here, down here, and you, of course, have them in a place where if Philippines has these ships, they're in all of the big area that China says is essentially theirs. In fact, they're in areas that Philippines, under the general rule, they have so many miles outside of what the land that they have that is supposed to be their space. Well, there are now islands and little things that even have been, that are being built, just like the Spratly Islands, where they're trying to claim them. Even little atolls where it's a piece of ground. Philippines is seen planting a flag on it in the morning, and then China goes at noon and frickin' plants one too and takes a picture and says, "This is our island. This is our land." I mean, they're conquering land. That's the crazy part, is China is trying to conquer land right outside of actual established countries. So you're talking about giving destroyers to these countries. Now, and then unsurprisingly, China has taken a stern view of the potential transfer. In a coldly worded statement, Chinese Defense Ministry spokesman Jian Bin urged Japan to deeply reflect and learn from history and exercise caution from its words and deeds in the military and security fields, state-owned Global Times reported. However, in an unwarranted move, the Chinese state media drew parallels between Japan's export of equipment to regional countries and its actions during the World War era. During World War II, Japanese militarism committed aggression and colonial rule against neighboring countries, including China and the Philippines, and occupied islands in the South China Sea, bearing grave historical responsibility. In recent years, Japan has breached the pacifist constitution. Again, this was right after the last president was taken out with a homemade shoddy, and there was a vote on the table, and because of his death, I believe that's why the party within 2 weeks shifted, and attempt to form small cliques to disrupt the South China Sea and create instability in the Asia-Pacific region. Now, everything they say that threatens China, they call an instability in the region. China is the instability. Again, in their eyes, I almost see how they could see that, though. They are such an old country as far as they go back so many millennia, as far as they have not had so much of a history in other regions of the world. This square has been China, and it's been run in a certain type of way, give or take a few different rulers throughout time. And it is pretty crazy for them to call this instability when most everybody else would call this, a deterrence and a move towards peace. And then Global Times, of course, the mouthpiece of China, they have been putting out pieces for the last week about Japan and how Japan will lose to China and all of this. I mean, they're heavily putting out a message to Japan to essentially stay out of it. But Japan will not, because if this area gets taken, they believe they are in threat. And Japan doesn't mess around. And then the White House lawn was locked down by Secret Service, and the press were ordered to shelter. So, Dex, they said that this was cleared now. So they said, they've got the all clear, but there's really no explanation. And this could change if you're watching this later, watching the replay. They could say, they did say somebody threw something over the fence, but that wasn't an exact explanation the first 2 hours this came out.
Yeah, that's correct. So yeah, the north lawn is usually where you see the reporters when they're coming to you live from the White House. They're usually standing out there. If you remember when Ducey got attacked by the birds, that's that same area. So yeah, they closed it down. They locked it down quickly. They moved all the reporters inside or put them into the press room. They held everybody until they cleared it. And yes, something was thrown over the fence, and I think it's now been reported by Carolyn Levitt that it was a phone. A phone was thrown over the fence in the direction of the where the people were by someone. They didn't say who, and that is what caused the absolute lockdown across the White House. So a cell phone crosses the fence, and everyone ducks for cover.
Well, and as far as a phone, if it was some sort of trigger to a bomb or something, if they're using T-Mobile, it just wouldn't go off. So I mean, you got a pretty good chance that nothing would happen. But why a cell phone? Why did they throw that over? Did they throw it over to try to? I wonder if they were taking a video of it with the phone and threw it over or something. Like, what ends up happening, right? Well, here's the thing. We've had instances like this, and especially there was a couple instances back in the 80s where they said it was something simple like that. And then you've come to find out later that it was actually something far more sinister and far more serious. As far as Secret Service sees a small object go over the thing, it is very, very crazy how many different devices and different things that are in play in the White House. In fact, no one here can tell us everything that is surrounding the White House. I mean, they have SAM missiles, they have all sorts of stuff, but they also have sensors, technology that nobody has ever seen before protecting the White House. Weight sensors, all sorts of things underneath the lawn there. So I could see even just a phone landing on it would trigger something. I could see somebody doing that just to trigger that system or to see what happens. But what's, gets even freakier is, if there's copycats that say, hey, how about we do this every day? And they make it a thing. Again, the reaction by local reporters, they thought it was something far more serious. So was it far more serious, or was it just what they said? Somebody threw a simple phone over the fence. Was it an angry domestic disturbance where the guy says, you like the president more than you like me? Or I don't know. I'm just guessing, and my imagination goes to an extremely specific place because of who's president. And then Republicans move to block Democratic effort to force release of the Epstein files. So everybody is following this. Again, this is being covered by so many different creators I've never seen cover this stuff before. They're watching this. Everybody is calling for this to happen. And right when Elon and him started fighting, within the first day, I think it was the next day, that he says, yeah, the president doesn't want those files out because he's on them. I am actually glad to see that there are so many more people that agree with me, because you had a Democratic controlled government for 4 years that had access to these things that, could have used whatever's in there. If it's there to hurt the president, this current one, they would have used it before trying to pop him in the head. I think the popping him in the head was after trying to do absolutely everything they possibly could to get this guy to not be able to be a president. And they went last resort. So why, I don't think that there's a huge thing in there about him. And he purposely knows, goes in front of press. He's media trained, goes and says, oh, who cares about that? That's a nothing. And he purposely says it in such a way that it was immediately suspicious. Like, we're talking about a guy who's done probably 10 billion deals. He knows what is watching. He knows the media is watching. He knows that every word is going to be taken and tweeted and copied. Why would he say something like that? He is really very careful about how he talks and what he says. Even if he makes a mess up on Twitter, like Cafefe or whatever, people, on the rare occasions, I think he even fixed that by having somebody else type for him. Now somebody literally types and transcribes his tweets for him. So it makes you wonder. Dex, like, this is exactly kind of what we thought that the whole feud was over. Because any enemy of the president is a friend of his enemies, you know? So now you've got him saying it. Now they're calling for it. If they release this thing, it's not just the president that will go down. We know that there would be absolutely huge ramifications for royalty, for people in high government, for celebrities, for all sorts of people that knew this guy.
Yeah, certainly. And, you know, I don't know how this is going to play out. I don't know if this is all, you know, what they call 4D chess or whatever, but, you know, this ploy of now having the opposite side of your party, as well as a big faction of your own party now yelling at you to release the files. If that's what he wanted, he was successful. I don't know if that was his original goal, but you know, a couple of the things he did say today that he was blaming. He said that a lot of the files and a lot of the information in the files were made up by Comey and made up by Obama, which seems odd. But who knows what that means, really. And then he sort of dodged the question on whether his name was in it, but then he did later apparently respond to a reporter who asked if his name was in the files, and he said no, twice.
And one of the quotes here, one of the Democrats says, hoping to force a release of the documents. The question with Epstein is, whose side are you on? California Democratic U.S. House member says, are you on the side of the rich and powerful, or are you on the side of the people? I get so irritated with hearing these folks, especially the people that are doing like super backdoor, you know, insider trading that have millions and millions of dollars. And even the ones that say this, a lot of the ones that have in the past said, oh, well, no, I take my salary, but that's it. And I really try to be, you know, for the people. You end up finding out that they have secret accounts or shell companies or something that they've put offside or out of the country, or they have a second residence. And in that country, they are, you know, filthy rich. It's just, it's so crazy to me to hear them say, and to have us think it's us versus the rich and powerful, when it's literally, it's just stupid. It's pointing us in the wrong direction. It's not just the rich and powerful. It's very, very specific people. And they just kind of try to make everybody against everybody. Rich versus poor, you know, old versus young, black versus white, this versus that. I mean, it's just everything. They want to put all of us in different boxes that are all scratching at each other, so they can't see the person that's above the cage, you know, waving, you know, the stick with the hot dog on it, and we're all fighting each other. It's just stupid. And then Linda V, thank you for seeing you here. And then Life is Better on Stilts, thank you. Nice to see you again. Sean C, Scrappy Dappy Doo, Ian Jones, Robert Arias, Blop Jones, Lord Malphus, nice to see you. Thank you so much, Bobby Sue, for modding. Jammer, thank you for modding. I don't know if we have Ilea tonight, but thank you, Ilea, if you end up watching the replay. And then we've got Jeff B, Thais Legel, Rochelle Cooley, nice to see you. So awesome to have so many good people in the chat. And then before we talk about China's new secret weapon, I do want to remind you guys, make sure to go check out Energy. Only right now, again, of course, you guys wondered, like, what happened to Energy? Energy is on permanent pause for the regular ones. This is the tactical. Now, the tactical is an upgraded version that's reinforced steel. They have a batch in, and again, they've reassured this would be something where you order it and it's going to be shipping in a couple days. But it's a very small batch, and then once that batch is gone, it is gone. Some folks waited anywhere from 6 to 8 months to get theirs, especially during the CV period in 2019 and all that stuff was going on. So this is, again, a really cool thing, and it's an opportunity because this is one of the best solar generators in its class. Again, this has I would go check out the capacities. There's multiple generators you can end up getting. As far as this one, this is something that's literally made for the military. In fact, they are changing all sorts of things, and they are going to make this is going to comply with all of the military contracts. This is just an incredible unit. Again, it's ready for weather. It's ready for falls. It's ready for everything. Again, marfooglenews.com/energy, INERGY, and make sure to use the code Marfoogle. The tactical is definitely a crazy, crazy step up from the regular. especially with all of the extra features and those reinforced clamps. All right. And we have the flying ship dubbed the Sea Monster. This is so creepy, because I think that this is going to be used to cross oceans. Now, I really wonder about the ability for this to actually cross a major ocean. Like, what if there's 30-foot waves? Can this thing go slow and float through it, and then when it's smooth sailing, go 340 miles an hour? Can it fly at all? Can it go above the water at all? The reason why this thing would be used in any case, they believe that it, not only because of the speed, because of the capacity, but also because the low flying actually puts it into a very odd category where it's extremely hard to track. Because if you're talking about a boat, a boat is on the water, but it is going slower. Slow enough for them to see a difference. This thing's going 340 miles an hour, skimming across the top of the water. If you think about that, it's just going to be cruising. It is very hard for the radars to catch this thing. And if you have a bunch of these, and these are massive, look at the pictures of the original version. They're copying this essentially from the Loon class Ekranoplan, really. And this was a Soviet era, plane/boat. It's got these things on top. You can see that it looks like launchers. I'm sure that messes up its aerodynamics, but man, and are those a weapon that they just shoot straight across? Like, what does that fire? Are those just huge missile tubes? It makes me think that too, inside, if they didn't put those inside and coming out the top or somewhere else, that, is this a ship that can hold things inside, and how many things can it hold inside? Dex, did you see anywhere about if they talked about if the inside could actually carry troops and things like that?
No, I mean, this is still a prototype, and all we have to go on are the pictures from the Soviet era. It doesn't necessarily mean that what they're building looks anything like this or is designed to be, weaponized in the same way. It could be troop movement. It could be drone carrying. It could be doing lots of different things. We just don't know. But the fact that they're launching this skimming system that skims across the ocean, and you got to think, technology is far more advanced. The engines are more advanced today. The computer systems that can navigate and control and operate this, even with AI, can be far more advanced than what they had back in the day with the Soviet version of this type of sea monster, if you want to call it that, or as they're calling it.
It could be automated.
Yeah, it could be automated, and it could solve some of the problems maybe that they had that plagued it back then, that obviously didn't bring it to fruition because we didn't see these planes, these boat planes skimming across the ocean, all these years. It obviously wasn't successful for the Soviets.
I just want, I want, and yeah, and that's a thing to think about. Even in the consumer area, they're coming out with these things that regular people can buy that are sort of a boat that essentially you can press a button. It looks like a whale, and it will change the essentially the tilt of the fins, I guess. And this thing can go from a surface boat going 65, 70, 80 miles an hour on the thing to going just underneath the water. So a submarine, the thing is fully enclosed and you can go underwater with it. And this is just something a person can buy if they're rich enough, right? I can only imagine what something like this, if they could do a big version that could not only fly up above, that could tilt and then go down under, maybe just right underneath the water. How hard would that be to track? I could imagine that would be extremely hard to track. And I believe that whale thing that can actually cruise underneath just by a couple inches or whatever. So it's like 6 inches where the top is totally missing and underneath. Something like that. Would that be impossible to track? In the case of something like this coming our way, man, what if they made something like this that could not only fly and go through storms and things like that, but it could also carry a huge amount of troops? That would be very creepy. Thank you, Trusted Source. Thank you for gifting out a membership. I appreciate that. Thank you for using your super to actually essentially gift somebody else. Thank you, guys. And sorry about the late show tonight. I know that most of you on the East Coast are already asleep if you're watching the replay. we've been, moving all week, and it's just a huge process to get out of a home and out of it and into another one. So thank you guys. I appreciate you. It wasn't by choice. The owners of our house are selling, and it just sucks. So thank you guys so much for being patient with the schedule this week. And up until really the end of the month, it'll be, hit or miss. So make sure to check Twitter. Pretty much always we go on. It's very rare that I don't go on. But if I don't go on, for sure, I put it on something on either the community post or on Twitter or on both. Dex, thank you so much for your service today. I appreciate you.
Much love. Great job, brother.
All right, you guys. Thank you, Trusted Source. You are a top supporter tonight. I appreciate that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you to our mods. Make sure to go check them out over at marfooglenews.com. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Again, Bobby, Sue, and Jammer for being here the whole show. I appreciate you. And again, we will see you tomorrow on the 16th. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It is now time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro.